If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, aging. Today's guest is a dear old friend, John McGuire, former CEO of ErgoExpress.com. John and I go way back, and we'll be discussing his diagnosis with gastroparesis and heterophoria, diet, exercise, and the meditative practices that have helped him improve his health and have enabled him to age better. And one of the things I'd like to do on this podcast is to have people on here who aren't necessarily the trained experts in the aging process, but people who have experienced life and who have been a part of my life and can share a little bit more about what has allowed them to age successfully. And John, I don't know how much you recall of our first meeting. I think the first time I really have a vivid memory of meeting you, other than kind of meeting you at church that one weekend, was standing in line at, I believe it was Waldbaum's, and you were in line in front of me, and hey, I know you, and we started chatting, and it was probably shortly after that we became roommates and spent a couple years together. Kind of going through a lot of experiences, and I want to kind of take you back to that point because I think as we get through this conversation, we'll be talking about how far you have come from really that time to where you are now, and just like you to kind of share a little bit about who you were back then in the early '80s, or I'm sorry, early '90s.
Yeah, well, 1989. We met, went to church together, and that was kind of a rough time. I was having health problems at that time in my life, and I really wasn't sure what the origins of them were. And I know I had all sorts of allergies and chemical sensitivities and things like that, and I still do have some of those things, but not nearly as acutely as I did then. But through the years, I've learned things about what I was going through that made it so difficult. And one of those things that I think was the catalyst to my health problems was a concussion that I actually received in high school playing football. I received more than one, but I got one concussion that was really significant. And I always, after that, had balance problems. And I just figured that's part of the deal, that I was going to have to live with these balance problems. Why I made this association now about going back to the concussion problem, it kind of took a long route to come to this conclusion. But back around the time when we met, I went to a doctor, and they did a whole bunch of tests. She was more of a natural doctor, but she was a medical doctor. Her name was Serafina Corsello. And she did a test at that time where I swallowed a radio transmitter in a pill form, where they monitor the transit time it takes from the time that you put something in you to eat and the time it goes through your digestive system. Well, mine did not go through in the proper way, and I still have the printout from when I went to her, and I didn't make a big thing of it at that time. I had a condition called gastroparesis. I didn't even look then to see what it meant. I looked in recent times, within the last 15 years, and realized this. And what happens with gastroparesis is you eat your food, it stays in this top part of your stomach for a long time, and then it eventually passes through, but you don't get the nutrients timely. So you're always in somewhat of a malnourished state. Plus, you deal with issues like acid reflux and all these type of things. So that was one of the things that I learned about from that test. And I know this kind of goes around in a circle a little bit, but in recent years, within the last probably 10 years, I was listening to a program on the internet about a guy who wrote a book called The Ghost in My Brain. This guy's name was, I think he's another doctor, his name is Clark Kellogg, where he had a really bad head injury. And he had all of these post-concussive type difficulties afterward. And he was ill for a number of years, and he went through various doctors. And this one doctor came to realize what his problems were with his vision. And she prescribed him prism glasses. And when he put the glasses on, he felt like much, much better. And then shortly after that, he made a recovery. So I looked up about his condition. I read his book, and he had a condition they call vertical heterophoria. And I looked up about this condition, and I found a doctor on Long Island that deals with this issue, because the balance problems that I had, I knew was after a head injury. And this person had his balance problems after a head injury and was helped with prism glasses. So I went to this doctor on Long Island. She did very thorough hours of tests and what have you. And she said, "You have vertical heterophoria." And I said, "Well, what exactly is that?" She says, "Well, I'll explain it in layman's terms. You know how you have your high beams on your car? And if one of the high beams are off, like it's pointed up at the sky, kind of, you see when you're driving with the high beams, they're not level." Because, well, that's what's happening to your eyes when you have vertical heterophoria. One of your eyes is not aligned correctly. So your brain stops using that, even though you can see 20/20, it stops using that eye for most of it. It lets you see close things, but nothing far. And you can develop all sorts of different problems, vision problems, balance problems, a host of various things. So when I went back, she took, they did a prescription. I had to come. When I put those glasses on, a minute after putting those glasses on, my balance was 90% better than it's been since I'm a kid. It was like some miracle. And it takes me back to when I got the concussion, because concussions can damage your vagus nerve. Quite often, when your vagus nerve is damaged, you develop gastroparesis. And we know that the stomach, there's neurotransmitters in the stomach, like it's its own brain. I don't know if you probably know this as an exercise physiologist, but so all these stomach problems due to the gastroparesis with the vagus nerve damage, it all came together.
Wow, that's fascinating.
That had I had the right protocols back then, because when I had the concussion, and I said I had several, but the one I had gotten hurt in a scrimmage, And then on a Thursday, then there was a game on Saturday. I was the backup quarterback. I was a junior. The senior quarterback got hurt in the game, put out for the year on Saturday. And now I had the concussion on Thursday, the day before, 2 days before the game. So now we got a game the following week, and I'm in no shape to play football. So the coach said, "Well, can you go?" I said, "No." I said, my balance is all off. I'm all messed up. He goes, "Why don't you just try, see what you can do? I'm going to arrange a scrimmage against Mineola High School on Wednesday." And I did. I played pretty well, but I was like not even there mentally. Now, you're not supposed to go back and have contact 4 days. That's when a lot of the people who have post-concussive syndrome, which I had, go back playing too soon because there's a whole mess of chemicals that are swirling around your brain after a concussion. And your brain needs time to heal. It needs rest, and then it needs light mental and physical activity for about a week or so to 2 weeks. But to go back into play at a high level, 4 days or so, 5 days after getting a bad concussion, really kind of, I think, changed my life forever, pretty much, with as far as health goes. And it's been a fascinating journey.
I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging. Yeah, it has, because I recall, back in the late 80s, when you were trying to figure this all out, you were going through everything. That's one of the things I enjoyed about being your roommate is you thought you had all these food allergies and you'd buy food to try them and you couldn't eat them. They would upset your stomach. And so I got free food, but you were looking.
Well, that did happen a lot. And I'll say with this, during that time, I definitely learned from observing you the Spartan approach to life. I don't think I've ever met anybody as disciplined as to stay on a food budget and to stick to that as diligently as you did. And from that day to today, I can't tell you the respect and admiration I gained for you observing you do that. It was nobody could ever tell me that that you didn't do what's necessary to get ahead and to live your life. So,
well, thanks. I appreciate that. And I'd say the same. Watching that whole experience was, it was tough because, I remember so many evenings, I'd get up in the middle of the night and you were sitting in the living room, just in agony because your stomach was upset. I remember, one time you drinking my Glenfiddich for some Glenlivet for medicinal purposes. Of course, I didn't drink scotch, but it's like, dude, you're drinking the most expensive scotch in the house. But you're trying everything, and then you realize, well, you can't drink, and so
yeah, I've had a drink in over 30 years.
So what's been that process now? You've.
Oh, I'll tell you the things that have helped me. One of the things that I think is the most important, maybe the most important thing, was without learning anything else, was starting to meditate. I've meditated since the early 90s. I meditate every day, sometimes twice a day. And that meditation elicits the relaxation response. This Dr. Herbert Benson from Harvard wrote a book because he was interested in the association of stress, what the stress had on his patients and on the American people. and what could be done about it. And he observed that when he tested people who were practitioners of transcendental meditation, and he studied that Maharishi Yogi himself, that their blood pressures were very low and that they maintained through the entire day. And when he saw that, he said, wow, that's, remarkable findings that you can alter without medicine. You can alter your vitals and blood pressure. So he took it even further, though. His supposition was, so this worked with transcendental meditation, but is there any other disciplines this could work that would elicit this response that if you do 20 minutes, it's got to be 20 minutes, and it's got to be focused on something so that you don't have your mind wander just sitting there for 20 minutes. So whether in transcendental meditation it's a mantra, whether it's in meditation that you say count your breaths, but he came to learn, like, say, if you're a Catholic and you recite the rosary, or if you're some sort of Christian and you pray, as long as you're doing it for that 20-minute period, you will elicit the relaxation response. And when measured, the heart rate decreases, your breathing gets shallow. Like, I can feel, like, a lot of times it's funny, around the 17 or 18-minute mark, I'll notice my breathing comes very, shallow. It's like almost I'm not breathing. The breaths are very spaced out. I'm not constantly controlling it. Just there's an effect now. And you feel that, I call it the chatter that we all have, in our brains at all times. Well, at the 17, 18-minute mark, that stops. You don't hear it anymore. You're just kind of in a blissful place. And then I did remember that, to back up his thing on prayer, that when I would be praying back in the 80s, if I prayed for a long time, there'd be a sense where I would feel that while praying. I would feel this peace after praying for a while. And I'm thinking, I'll bet you that was after the 17 or 20-minute mark, where I started feeling this very peaceful. That's the way to describe it with the meditation. And so getting back, that has been the thing I think that has helped me the most. The other things are exercise. I have a Fitbit now, so I make sure I walk 10,000 steps a day. Yesterday I did over 20,000. So, I'm walking. I only drink water. I don't drink any beverage other than water. There's nothing. That's all I drink. There's about 10 or 12 foods I eat, because I do have food allergies, and I stick close to those foods. I never vary off those foods because I don't feel well. So that's what works for me. And, I stick to it. I stick to doing those things that I know work and I know have scientific backing. I know the relaxation response is taught in hospitals. They have meditation clinics, and we know that works. And just another off with that Herbert Benson, that doctor, he has, I don't know if it's a book, but he has a study on intercessory prayer and the findings of intercessory prayer on the physiologically. And those are all positive too. So that didn't go to just meditation. Intercessory prayer, that's how he terms it, is another way you can benefit from doing these things that aren't associated with taking a pill. And not that I'm against taking a pill. If you need the pill, by all means take it. But if there are ways you can do it without taking a pill, I'm sure that would probably be a better way. That's all I try to do. So those are my, have contributed to making it easier for me to age. I can still, hit a golf ball 270 yards off the tee. I'm 66 years old. So, you know, and I walk when I play. I don't ride. I mean, I'll ride if I have to, if that's the only thing everybody's doing, but I prefer walking. It's better for me to walk. So I'd rather walk and play golf.
Well, I know I haven't seen you in person for a couple of years now, especially with COVID and all, but I know the last few times I've seen you physically, you are just leaps and bounds healthier looking than you've ever been in my recollection. I mean, you're just comparing, I mean, I think you looked older back in '89 than you do now, other than a little bit of the gray hair and that kind of stuff. But, kind of interesting, with the meditation pieces, I think we'll get back to here, because I do find that interesting. I want a little bit more information about kind of what you do meditatively, but I do think that there is a a certain rhythm in the universe that we can all kind of connect to, and it kind of comes down to some of what we're finding in quantum physics and those types of things, where getting into that just common rhythm just has such a physiological effect on everybody. But when you mentioned your diet, and you said, well, you have about 12 foods that you eat, and I think I'm about the same way. I'm very much, I could eat the same thing every day, day after day after day, and it doesn't really get boring for me because it has kind of become my habit. It's become my healthy foods. I try to eat the stuff that is most healthy for the money. And you talked a little bit about my budget back in '89. I found the foods that I can eat well and cheaply, but I do recall the enjoyment that you got out of eating things like a sweet potato or plain yogurt. And I think we tend to go after this kind of immediate sensation in food, and that's why we're so addicted to salt and sugar and the chemicals that are in food. But we allow our bodies to adjust to eating what is good for us and healthy for us. I think we more often will find that our body will begin to reject the things that we shouldn't be eating. And it's like talking last night with Corbin, my co-host, and talking about eating donuts, and I can't fathom eating a donut anymore. I mean, if you've ever craved one, you're like, oh yeah, I haven't had one. It looks so good, and you take that one bite of it, and it's like, well, that was not worth it. But our tendency is, then we keep eating it, and it's like, oh, why am I doing this? But I keep biting it, and as we get our bodies to a state where that one bite, it's like, this is not enjoyable to me, we can just put it aside. And that gets us eating much, much healthier and just gets us in a much, much better place.
Well, I made the association on things, and it's going to sound maybe kind of extreme, but it was what worked for me. Like the equivalent to eating, say, for me, a McDonald's. I equate that to putting my hand on a hot stove. It's pain. I don't associate a McDonald's with pleasure. I associate it with pain. I won't eat it for that reason, because while I know going down, the experience might be, okay, it tastes, it's a different taste and it tastes good, but what it's doing to my body after it, I will pay. I'm not saying, see, because I have these digestive issues, it manifests itself quickly on me. Now, a person without this, they're not going to manifest it. I'm almost fortunate in some ways that it will manifest, so I know not to eat it, where the average person eats it and it is doing harm, but they don't feel an immediate, like, that just made me sicker than I should be at some level, you know? So, like you mentioning too, that you stick for these food and you don't mind it. What I will say is, it would be harder for somebody, say, like my wife, who I would categorize as a foodie. People who are foodies, for them to eat 12 foods, I think the emotional toll might be really strong on them. I'm not a foodie. I mean, I love food. I'd love to eat, be able to eat those other things, but it's not like, oh, well, life's not worth living because I can only eat 12 foods. And I think you're like that too, is you don't feel put off by like eating the 12 foods or whatever the number would be. You feel good that there are foods that you can eat and they do the job because it's really it's your fuel, right? And I know you are someone who works out and is, strength trains, and you need the best bang for your buck if you're going to be in the shape you want to be in. Like, why put empty stuff into you? That's not a winning formula, right? I would imagine what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, if I put the empty stuff into me, it's got to be good empty stuff. Yeah,
right. I call that food for the mind.
Well, not even as well. Yeah, I don't know if I'd say mind as much as maybe just the soul or the spirit. It's like that the emotional side of us but it's got to be good stuff. It's like the donut. I mean, a
donut's like it's decadent. There's no soul to a donut, if you will. I mean, say somebody made a nice pastry or something, like, or somebody made a nice apple pie and, crafted it. Okay, there was work done, but a donut?
Yeah, that apple pie is a great example of that because, if we'll pick on McDonald's today, but, their pies, there might have been a time in my life where those might have tasted good to me, but those are like the Hostess fruit pies and things like that. They don't compare to like my grandmother's apple pie or, apple pie that somebody has made. And yeah, there might be more calories in a slice of my grandmother's apple pie, but man, it's worth it, because that I'm not going to just feel empty afterwards. It's a moment of pleasure that'll last me a lifetime. And, there's no real harm in it. Okay. Yeah. I might bump my weight up a little bit for a few days, until it stabilizes again. But
you'll take care of that though, short order. And, I agree with that. I think you should choose those things to say go off what's the best things for you. You should choose those things wisely and not just arbitrarily. And I know it's not easy for the average person because, when you work, it's hard to get food out that's convenient. But I know for me, it's preparing. It's like before I play golf, I cook sweet potatoes and put them in a plastic bag and put them in my golf bag. And I'll eat one at the turn or something like that, where everybody else is getting a hot dog or what have you, and they're getting a beer. I'm having water and I'm having a sweet potato because I'm just needing some blood sugar to get to the rest of the round, then to get home.
You, I think, are the only person I've ever seen eat a sweet potato just raw, well, not raw, but plain, and enjoy it like they were eating a Snickers bar.
That's true. I'll tell you, like I was talking to somebody one day and I was eating a pear, those brown pears. I think they come up from your region.
Good.
They're so sweet. Like to me, because that's so sweet. And I think people they would say it's sweet, I guess, but not sweet like candy. But to me, that sensation is so sweet eating a pear. It's like almost candy, when I eat a pear, and I don't, believe me, I'm not saying like, I'm not thinking, oh, I wish I could have, a donut, a piece of cake, or even a Snickers bar. Well, a Snickers bar every now and then is a good thing. I think, every now and then. I remember as a kid, but I'm certainly not pining over the loss of eating a Snickers bar.
I tell you, even for myself, having tried to make healthier choices over the most recent years, your mass-produced candies they don't do it for me quite anymore. It's, I've started eating some dark chocolate in the evening. That's kind of my little treat. And, it's got to be the darker, the better. That higher cocoa
It has
content.
the health benefit.
And
Yeah.
you eat
Yeah.
that and you adjust your palate and your physical response to it to where it tastes good and it's pleasurable to you. Then you go to the stuff that is just loaded with the chemicals and just refined sugar and crap. It just doesn't have the same pleasurable response to you neurologically.
I think you're right. But I think it's a process. Like, I think to the average person, they wouldn't agree because I think their system isn't aligned that way. If they went through a process of changing the way they eat, they might come to those conclusions. And I'm not picking on people that eat, say, like the average American. I'm just saying it might be better for them to be more thoughtful about how they eat for their longevity's sake and their quality of life. I mean, I had to by necessity. I was forced through health reasons to have to adopt this way of life.
Yeah, and I think I was forced through poverty reasons, not making much money. I had to find the cheap stuff. But I absolutely agree with you that, people just need to train their systems to adjust to it. And once you get away from what we're being fed, that, this is what we're supposed to, like, and what is convenient to us, and maybe having to take a little bit of inconvenience and actually get back to really basic, good, wholesome eating, the other stuff isn't going to taste so well. I mean, if Americans could kind of just get on your mindset toward food, you would see the big food industry just go away. It's
and I think that they could come to enjoy it because they could, like I said, 12 foods, where there are other healthy choices that can be made outside of the 12 foods. There's a host of vegetables and various fruits where you can gain the phytonutrients and the micronutrients from berries and those things, and basically have an adventure with it. Learn about certain foods and how there's just so many that can add to the quality of life, and we don't see them because they can't put them in a fast food. They can't make a quick profit. So you can to make bread and put cheese on it and tomato sauce and call it a pizza somehow, like these things that aren't pizza. The Domino's, these chains. I mean, that's not even pizza. That's the cost to health benefits of starch and cheese. It would be incalculable in this country, and there's very little nutritional value. Yeah, it'll stop your hunger for an hour, but your body's going to cry out for the nutrients you didn't get a couple hours later, and you're going to want to eat again. It's just how it works. And I really, when I see those pizza commercials, I'm watching a football game, and inevitably they come on, maybe 2 or 3 different ones, and I'll say to my wife, I said, "Look at that slop. That to me, that doesn't even resemble food." Now, if you took, if you say went to a Chicago pizza or a New York pizza or any, really metropolitan place where there's ethnic people making food, they might not be the best for you either, but those are food. those there's some substance to that.
Okay, now you forget I'm from Pittsburgh, and I lived in New York, of course. Pittsburgh and New York is where the pizza is. I'm not into the Chicago stuff, but I would argue that my hometown of Pittsburgh has some of the best pizza around. And I know arguing that with a New Yorker really gets you in trouble, but
But yeah, but I'll tell you, I would have to have. I've never tasted it, but why? To me, there's a great ethnic population of various ethnicities in Pittsburgh. So I think if you had any food from any region of, that's transplanted, I would imagine Pittsburgh's as good as any urban. Just think all the urban areas, because there are so many concentrated restaurants and people from other places, they just do food very well. I think, right?
Pizza here in the Northwest isn't so great. You get a lot of the artisan style pizzas that, they just don't do it for me. And so I don't crave pizza until I cross the border into like Pennsylvania or, go to New York. And, then it's like, okay, we got to go to this specific spot for some pizza. And, again, it's like a slice or two, right. And, you've experienced it and it feels good.
Right. You've done it. Yeah. Right. You've had your fill. You remember it. You have a nice thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the best way to eat, but rather I'm just comparing it to the stuff that, that costs very little, and we're going to throw an extra cheese bread with it, or we're going to throw in some pastry or what have you, and give you about 6,000 calories.
It's not the best way to eat, but it is a better way to eat. The more we can kind of get away from that processed stuff, and it's a step along the way to getting into that less refined, more wholesome, more natural kinds of foods that we really should be eating. And it's hard. We've grown up eating the way we eat. It's not easy to move away from that. But, we have evolved from this, population of humans who, food was scarce, and, you didn't pull an apple off of the tree, cut it up and make a pie with it. You basically took it off the tree and you ate it raw. You killed your deer and you roasted it over a fire, and you didn't put spices or any of that barbecue sauce on it or any of that kind of stuff. You ate it off the bone. And, that's how our bodies are really conditioned more naturally to eat.
I think that's sound. And the things that they did use were various herbs, garlics and onions, and which we know there are health benefits to those.
Yeah.
Right. And, this, food, I know it's one of the Greek philosophers said would be, or I think, was it food be thy medicine? I know that's, I can't remember who it was, but someone famous said that, let food be thy medicine. And
that sounds like one of those Greek philosophers like Plato or Socrates, or
something like that. Yeah.
Socrates. Yeah. Liam is studying philosophy in school right now, so we often have discussions as I pick him up after school or practice, talking about the philosopher du jour, and he is really into the Greek ones.
That's gotta be fun, right? Really great. That's cool. Yeah.
So
I'm happy to hear that. To know about two men talking about subjects like that, it's a good thing. We need more of that. There's more to life than just the the sports and the football, which that has its place, right, for some men. But
I think we've grown to a society that we have become spectators rather than the participants. We'd rather be in the arena watching rather than be the gladiator. We sit on our couches and watch somebody else have physical activity, and we get enjoyment from it. I think we need to go back to being much more physically active.
I prefer doing stuff myself. I always have, I play golf almost every day. I'm retired, so and I live in a golf community, so I can get out and play all the time. Then I go outside. I have friends that want to play at other places, and there's a group here where I live who play what they call a Sunday scramble every Sunday, and I participate in that for a couple
They don't
of
do
bucks.
a Sunday scramble on Monday?
No, they only do
Just
it
on
on
Sunday.
Sunday.
Okay. Oh, well, that's a novel idea. I
Yeah,
never thought of that.
yeah. So
I got to be a
I've
smart ass once in a while.
I made some money on that endeavor at times, so that's fun too. But yeah. So you wanted to? I know you had mentioned about the ways, the techniques for
Yeah,
meditation.
tell me a little bit about, what do you do meditatively to...
Okay. I can tell I do various things. Okay. One of them is counting my breath as the breaths. So, you just start, and inevitably you're going to get distracted and lose your count. Then you got to go back to one. Right. And that's the process you're going through the whole time. And you try to get as far as you can. Now, when you get where you lose it, this isn't a pass or fail thing. Okay. It's just doing the thing. Okay. So say you notice that you're not counting, you got drifted off in a thought, right? And you got to start back at one. You can't think, oh, I messed up. It's just, you don't react to it. You just go back to one, right? And just keep going. Eventually, you will get to the relaxation response. It's just a tool to get there. So that's one way of doing it. Another way I do it is I have a clock that's kind of loud in the clock, and I hear the click. So I hear click, 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 and I just concentrate and listen to the click and just the rhythm of that click. And if my mind goes off into a thought, I go back to the click. Other ways, I will take the word peace and repeat the word peace and just say peace, peace in my mind, as similar to what in transcendental meditation they give you a mantra. It's some Indian word or something that you would repeat. I choose the word peace, and I've told people, pick your own word. If you're, it could be love, it could be peace, it could be joy. Pick a word like that. There's other ways I meditate too. It's called walking meditation. And walking meditation is, so say I'm walking down the community where I live. As I say, pass a tree, I'll say to myself, oh, pine tree. And I'm going to identify everything I see as I'm walking. Oh, car. Oh, there's this, whatever. I'm going to so now I'm in the moment of where I am. I'm not I'm not thinking my own thoughts of, oh, I got to go here. Well, at this time, I'm late for this. I got this, that, I am now being present by just as I'm walking, identifying, oh, look at that deer over there grazing, and that's different. It's fun though. The walking thing, like sometimes you're doing it and you feel like you're kind of like in space. You just get into like you almost lose where you are, kind of. I mean, obviously you know where you are, but you get, because you're not used to walking that way. Usually walking and go, that whole discourse, is.
Yeah, I don't do too good with kind of meditative walking because I tend to turn it into, Pam and I do the same thing when we go kayaking. She's like into seeing everything around, and I'm just like, how many strokes can I get? How fast can I get it done? How can I get my heart rate up?
And I would see you that way. That you walk. I think you're a very industrious guy. I've always seen you that way, and kind of like goal oriented. And you're not going to do the thing passively. In my view, I think that's a pretty good evaluation, right?
True, yeah.
Right? Yeah. You try hard. If you didn't succeed in anything, whatever you were going to try, it would never be because you didn't try hard enough. It would be some other thing because you do put the effort in. And I know, when you see people like that, and that's not, I have some of that, but I don't have it nearly in the measure that you do. But I would encourage people to find people like that to show you where the standard could be and what you got to point toward if you want to be somewhere. Because unless you identify it, how would you know it exists? So if you see it and somebody does something better than you, it's not a bad thing. If you want, it's a good thing, because you say, oh, that's how it can be. And if you want to get better, try doing it that way. Try, and in every area, you'll have some things you do well, and then you can learn from the other people.
Yeah, it's like, remember what Mr. Schurter used to always say, can't never done nothing.
That was one of his big.
I still go back to that repeatedly. It's just like it can't never did anything. And I don't want my kids to. They try and challenge me all the time. They're saying, "Well, I can't do this." Well, no, you can, but I tell you can't because that's the rule in the house or whatever it might be. So, but we're talking back with your walking. I worked at Westinghouse's corporate fitness program in Pittsburgh when I first started after my master's. And there was a gentleman there that would get on the treadmill, and he would get so into his walk that you had to, when you go up to take his blood pressure, you'd have to kind of sneak up and gradually let him be aware that you were there, because if you startled him, he was off somewhere else. He was walking on the beach or, walking in Paris or something like that. And he could totally remove himself from the situation he was in. And I've never been able to accomplish that, but it would be, to me, it'd have to be a really amazing meditative state to get into.
It is, like I said, the business of meditation has been one of the best things of my life, as far as learning that. And, the benefits of meditation, I can't, praise enough. It just puts me in a place that makes everything better. And what I think why people have trouble, you have to be willing to, quote unquote, give up that 20 minutes. And people don't want to do that, because if you think about it, sitting for 20 minutes, not doing anything, especially in this day and age, is a foreign thing. You could sit 20 minutes, watch TV. You could sit 20 minutes and be on your computer, but to sit 20 minutes in silence. And a lot of times when you first several minutes, you feel like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a long time I'm going to be here, because you got the chatter in your mind to start, because there's, you're thinking about the things you have to do after this, or, what's on your day, and that's when you need it most. You have to let go and just sit there and do your time, so to speak, to be able to get to the place. And like, I try to give the analogy to people, and how to meditate is, you're sitting on the bank of a river, right? And now you're watching the boats pass by. Well, the boats are your thoughts. And now you're going to let them pass by. You identify them, the thought came, and you let it go by. You don't have the boat come into your view and watch it go all the way down the river. You just see it and then let it pass out of your vision, because it's very easy to like, there's a vanity to it almost, because you'll think some, like, what you think might be this grandiose thing at this moment while you're meditating. And it's like, oh, I don't want to lose that thought. And you have to learn to just let it go. Just let everything go, because we try to attach to everything. And meditation tells you, I'm just going to be present, let that thing go. And the Beatles, John Lennon wrote the song Across the Universe. That song is about meditation. He's describing a meditation, is what the lyrics of the song. He's describing his meditation experience. And there's one of the lines that Jayadaru or something like that. That's his mantra. When he repeats that, he sings that every refrain several times in the song. But he's saying words go pouring out like rain into a paper cup. They slither as they sail away across the universe. He's talking about his thoughts, words of sorrow, words of joy, come into my open mind. And he says, possessing and caressing me. And that's what happens. Like, your thoughts possess you or flatter you, and you got to let them go during your meditation. There's nothing wrong with the thoughts, but during this time, you got to let the thoughts go. And when you do, that's the only way you can get into that kind of relaxation response, as Dr. Herbert Benson described. And thankfully, there's not just one way. It's not just one way like I described. If people would look for various ways, you could find a host of ways, and one that works for you. I know there's guided meditations that do it too. I know they have them on YouTube, where somebody is a speaker and they guide you through a meditation. You will achieve the relaxation response in a guided meditation too. So I don't have one that I don't think one's better than the next. I think whatever you can do to do something to gain the relaxation response is what you should do. And if you're a Christian, pray 20 minutes, or a prayer person, pray. If you're a Catholic, do the rosary 20 minutes. Find something to elicit that response.
It's something I haven't done as well or as often as I should. And I kind of put that, my excuse is probably my opportunity cost piece that I always use, that, just that time in the day. But yeah, there's no excuse not to be doing it. I could use my drive at work a little bit more effectively. I have, times when I'll just kind of lay down and just kind of work on breathing. There's one technique I learned from Jim Harshaw, who I really like his podcast on success through failure. He's another, he's a former wrestler, and I'm not sure quite how I connected with his podcast, but he has a really good podcast for people to listen to. But in one of the episodes, he talks about one technique he uses where I forget what he calls it, but it's kind of like a square technique where you take like 5 seconds to breathe in, you hold that breath for 5 seconds, then you take 5 seconds to breathe out, hold your, expired lungs for 5 seconds, and then breathe in for 5 seconds again. You just kind of repeat that cycle over and over and over again. And, that's worked for me. I've never hit that 20-minute mark. And I think maybe you've encouraged me to kind of go after that target. Because certainly there are 20 minutes in a day that I can find. I mean, there's no excuse. I probably spend 20 minutes on Facebook at any given time, so.
Well, I would say, like, even if you gave it a try to see if you do get to that place of, try it a couple of days, and because I think what happens is you become a fan of it when you get to that place. That's what causes you to become a fan. Because it doesn't make sense until you get to that place where you do hit the relaxation response and everything kind of changes. Uh, I wouldn't say it's like a drug or anything like that, but it's just under that. It's not like taking like a pain pill or something like that, or a tranquilizer that would calm you down. It's more of a calmness. It's not, but an alert kind of calmness. I know that seems kind of a contradiction, but it's something in that place. Now, what you described about the breaths, there are forms. I know Andrew Weil has a similar technique, and there are other people that do. And what that does, what you're doing, that stimulates your vagus nerve, which calms you down. Okay, that the one I've heard is you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 7, you exhale for 8. So I guess there's varying, but that does stimulate the vagus nerves, and the vagus nerves does, when you do that, that's a calming effect. So you are gaining definite benefits in your fight against the things that are bad for you. It's an anti-stress move to make. So when you do that, I would encourage you to do it more, because you are doing an anti-stress hormone thing.
Yeah, I think anything we can do to relax our sympathetic nervous system and stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system is what's going to benefit us. And you mentioned it's not like a drug, but in fact, it really is in a way, because what are drugs other than triggering the physiological responses? This is just, yeah. I mean, our body is quite capable of releasing the things that, the endorphins and, the drug, the chemicals, serotonin and so on, that are going to relax our bodies and bring us into a kind of a better state of homeostasis. And, the parasympathetic nervous system, its whole role is to relax the body, that vagus nerve. When we stimulate the vagus nerve, we are lowering our heart rate, our breathing, and many of these other reactions and responses within the body. If we allow the sympathetic nervous system to kind of win the tug of war, I always describe it in my exercise physiology classes as the heart rate response is a tug of war between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. Parasympathetic is trying to pull the heart rate down. Sympathetic is trying to bring it up. If we allow the sympathetic to win that tug of war, then we're allowing our bodies to kind of succumb to the stresses that we are under. And we have it within ourselves to kind of counteract those stresses.
And with the vagus nerve, there's other ways to stimulate the vagus nerve. You can sing, you can chant, you can play a harmonica, you can play a kazoo. Those things stimulate the vagus nerve. Putting cold water, very cold water, on your face will stimulate the vagus nerve. So there are various ways to stimulate the vagus nerve to get that, again, like you're saying, that parasympathetic and sympathetic fight, to try to at least break even, if you will, right? At least get a tie. But these are some of the things that I try to accomplish, and you're not always successful, but you have a goal and you try to stick to it, and we do the best we can on a daily basis. And if you do make a mistake, if you don't have the best day doing it, you just, you lost the battle, but it's a long war, and you go to fight the next day on your journey. It's basically, I don't know, kind of how we do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I journal regularly, and that is a piece of my kind of meditative state. It's not always, the most meditative, but it definitely puts me in a more positive mood or frame of mind leading into the day. But I always end my journaling for the morning with kind of my mantras, and one of them is, be your best today, be better tomorrow. It's like, live in this moment, be the best that you can be at this possible moment, and then tomorrow will come. And tomorrow you do your best to be a little bit better. And the second one I use is I Am Third. I've always loved that book, and kind of puts me in the right social and emotional perspective. And then the third one I write is To God Be the Glory. And, I treat the God in that as, really the universe, and, beyond just my religious views, but the sense of my purpose within the universe and in interacting with others and so on and so on. And then, and then in grace and peace, just that approach to everybody, the introduction that Paul always used in his books, grace and peace. And, one other thing that I use when I'm driving, I learned this from the great heretic Rob Bell. I really love his writing and his speaking and so on. But he talked about I believe I think it's in the Greek, it's haval, or in the Hebrew rather, it's haval, which is the word it's translating meaningless in Ephesians. And that when it says everything is meaningless, it's missed. It's like it's gone the instant it's done, And I carry now a water bottle in my car because my most agitating moments in my day are when I'm driving, and I drive a lot with my commute. So I have a little water bottle that I keep in the car, and when somebody's annoying me, they cut me off, or they're driving too slow in the passing lane, or they stop at a roundabout, which these are all daily occurrences for me in my driving. I just kind of grab the water bottle, squirt it, and just say Haval. It's like just reminding myself it's all mist, it's all nothing. Just let it go, and it seems to help.
Well, I think that's a good prop to use, because whatever gets you back to the foundation, whatever gets you back to centering, right? You want to get centered, because when you're in the center, when you're in the place where you be, everything's good. The things that get you away from the center are not good for you, and it's easy because we're human beings and we're subject to hunger, pain, blood sugar, right? I mean, how many times has it been that anybody really, right, hasn't eaten in, say, didn't get their lunch, and now it's 6 hours since their last meal, and they're driving in the car or whatever they're doing, and they lash out because their patience is now spent. They'd have nothing working in their, no carbohydrate, no sugar right now in their brain, maybe, or not enough to let them be calm, and they freak. It's easy to happen. And then, if say you're eating a lousy diet of just carbohydrates, simple sugars, you're going to be more prone to that type of thing. No wonder why we have some of the craziness we have in this world, because people aren't even or eating and aren't being fed.
And that can go in so many different directions. And a lot about what I write about or speak about is well-centered fitness, and considering the spiritual, the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, and the social. And as you talked about centering that, I think that target grows smaller and smaller the more we grow into the various dimensions of life. But we have to be fed in all those areas. We can't just focus on the physical. I can't just exercise and that be my escape, because it's robbing me of the interactions with other people. I might not be getting quite the intellectual stimulation that I might get from reading books and, listening to great podcasts like this one. Right. And, and just meditating for my emotional and spiritual well-being, and just being around people that feed me. And some people, they're around people, but they're not being fed. Like you said, it's like they're getting a crap diet emotionally and spiritually and socially and physically and all that other kind of stuff. So
it's easy to to become distracted. And like you say, so the physical thing, if you're somebody that works out, it's very easy to want to spend a good portion of your time there because you feel, you're doing good for your system, but you feel good doing it. And you not just feel good physically, you feel good emotionally because you're doing the things that make for being healthy. So there's a reward here, but you do have to break away from it too, even though it might be hard at that moment. You might want to go more. There could be a day say, well, I got to get back home to interact at home base. I know it'd be nice to stay here because I would derive some benefit and some pleasure here, but I've done enough. And now I got to get back and nurture and be nurtured, right? Get back to center, to your home base of nurturing and love, the whole center there, so that you can go back out into the world. It's a battle. It's a battle to do the things that are the right way to do it because it's not easy. It's sometimes easier to do the wrong thing. The path of least resistance is, although in your case with working out, it wouldn't be the path of least resistance. You'd be doing the path of more resistance, but with pleasure.
Which, isn't necessarily bad per se. It's
not bad.
More exercise for me might be bad because just what it takes me away from, but for somebody else, it's accomplishing their goals and their lifestyle and whatever. And, so.
Right. It depends on the situation, on all the needs that you have and all the needs you have to fulfill. Right. Because people are counting on you as, a father and a husband, and they're counting on you as students are counting on you to be the best teacher you can be. Right. So you got to do all those things, to keep them so you can be the best teacher. And I know you have that as your mindset, that's what you want to be. That I know that's your goal, to be the best teacher you can be. Just from knowing you as I do, that you don't just mail it in. There's no way that's happening.
It feels like I do sometimes, but I try not to.
Well, I just have seen you in action a lot, and I know where your heart is.
Well, Mac, my dogs are starting to bark, so
I heard.
I'm gonna have to edit them out of this a little bit. But how about just kind of what are your thoughts in closing here? How would you kind of frame our discussion today?
Well, it was. First of all, it was fun. It was educational. It was stimulating. I hope it was helpful to some. I mean, even if one person is benefited, that would be something, but more, that would be even greater. I think some of the things that I've experienced and maybe relayed, there might be somebody that doesn't have to be the same situation, but a similar one that can say maybe there are some good ideas there. If it worked for somebody like me, then it could help me also, or at least say, that's, even if they said that sounds like it's ridiculous, let me see if there's anything about meditation that if any things he said can be backed up. Well, I would say go find that out, and that would be good too. So I think there could be some benefit. But the experience in and of itself was good, Jeff. Just, to do something new, right? I thought was a learning experience and fun. I hope it's helpful to you and to your audience.
I believe it will be. And I appreciate the conversation. I'm hoping this is kind of some of the path that this whole podcast will take, is that on occasion to be able to just share, some time with friends and new acquaintances, and, just kind of help each other find this path that we call aging. And, as keep saying, it's like it's getting everybody just aging well. And
well, I know you and your podcast partner are going to do a great job, and I'm looking forward to hearing. I know you're a wealth of knowledge and information in this field. You have the credentials, and and I know you have the desire to get the word out because you want people to age in a better way. So, if you're out there listening, give Jeff a listen more, especially when he can be the one relaying topics that he knows real well. And I know you'll benefit from that.
All right. Well, John, thank you very much. I really appreciate the conversation. And I'm going to end this now and just thank you very much. Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.